Welcome back to another episode of The Way, where today we're going to be doing something a little bit special for Valentine's Day.
We thought we'd give you guys our relationship advice that we've learned since living in a 300 square foot box together.
Well, she learned it. I already knew everything.
All right, so this first one on the list is a little bit of a joke, but it's kind of for real. It's pick up after yourself. If you're one of those people that doesn't pick up after themselves and likes to leave clutter around, it's time to start learning to pick up after yourself. It is a confined living quarters and you can have the smallest amount of clutter and it's gonna feel so dirty just because of the size of the place that you're living in.
Yeah, I'm just constantly cleaning up mess after mess from her.
Oh my God, no. Adam is a clutter bug and I'm not gonna say that I've never been guilty of it, but it's kind of one of those things that he's like always the instigator. Like I'll clean and then he'll like leave a couple things out and then eventually it's like, and I'll start picking up after him, but sometimes if it's like a busy week, you really notice the clutter more quickly. Yeah, and I get sick of picking up after him and then I'll be like, whatever, I don't even care. Like, and I'll just let it go. And then it's like, by the end of the week, it's like, okay, this needs to stop. So I feel like we've gotten a little bit better about picking up after ourselves. Adam specifically, he definitely is the epitome of I'm gonna throw my dirty clothes on the floor an inch away from the hamper. I don't know why, but that's him. So that one's a little bit more of a lighthearted piece of advice, but it definitely holds true and it's gonna become a lot more important if that's like a point of, contention. Contention in your relationship now is only going to get worse when you downsize. So just be aware of that. If you really want to have smooth, cohesive relationships in your RV with your significant other, I would really recommend defining the roles. What does that mean? I don't mean she's in the kitchen, I'm making the money. That is not what I'm talking about. On travel days specifically, for example, she does the inside stuff and I do the outside stuff. And, we switch from time to time just to make sure if somebody, broke their leg, we still knew what to do. But it really helps to move more quickly and more efficiently on travel days if I'm loading up the Jeep and wrapping up our sewer hoses and she's vacuuming and rolling up our rugs and getting us ready. We have it down to a science at this point. It's going to cause a lot less fights if someone has a job and that's kind of what they're in charge of and they kind of do their thing and you do your thing. If you're getting under each other's feet and each other's hair, especially on travel days or just other days when there's extra projects because of the nature of what you do, it's gonna lead to some tension, some irritability when you're already stressed out trying to move, do things, fix things. So be on the safe side, just divvy up who's supposed to do what, and you'll avoid a lot of unnecessary drama. Yeah, at this point, we don't even have to, talk about it. Travel days, we just kind of roll out of bed and groggy, start doing stuff, and we both know what we need to get done before we leave, and it works out pretty well for us. To add on to that, this is kind of similar, but also a little bit different piece of advice. It's put someone in charge. So there's undoubtedly going to be things that break when you're in this lifestyle. We've had so many more home projects than we've ever had in our lives previous to this. That being said, we're also pushing ourselves to constantly learn how to do these things and fix these things. So you can basically imagine that if you've never replaced your microwave before and it's a project in the RV, it's important to kind of decide who's kind of in charge of that job. I actually read this piece of advice somewhere from a couple that was living on a farm. I don't remember who they were, and it was kind of funny because it really hit home to me because I kind of realized that's something Adam and I just naturally started doing. I don't think it's something we really discussed that we needed to do it, but I noticed that once we started doing it, it was just a lot smoother. Basically, if you come up to a project that, needs fixing and it's going to be a 2-person job, just decide who's kind of in charge of that project, and the other person is essentially going to be an assistant. And depending on what the project is, or, who had more time to research what to do about that project, that's kind of going to, for us, dictate who's in charge, So if Adam's having a really busy work week and something broke, and I'm the one that has the extra time to watch YouTube videos, read articles, figure out kind of what's supposed to happen, then that would put me in charge, or, vice versa if it was the other way around. Doesn't mean that you can't make suggestions if you're the assistant for that job. Lord knows I will always speak my mind no matter what the project is. But that being said, it's important not to rub it in. If someone, decided I want to go this route on how we fix this, or I want to do this way, and it didn't necessarily work out for them, don't rub it in, because the next project when you're in charge and something goes wrong, you'll want the same grace from the other person.
All right, well, another piece of advice would be to communicate. Don't just assume your partner's mental status or anything really at all, Just because you spent all day and all night in this 300 square foot metallic box, you are not inside that other person's head. So, in a regular traditional lifestyle, you come home from your daily job and you ask, how was your day? Keep that up. Keep the dialogue available and open, and just really be emotionally available for your partner if, things aren't going great, and ask how things are going so that you know when things aren't going great.
Yeah, I think it's an easy trap to fall into in any lifestyle. Work weeks and stuff like that are monotonous, and it's easy to kind of just assume that you know how each other are doing. And I think what we're getting at here is it's really easy, especially when you're working together and you basically are never apart, to just assume, like, I already know how their day went. I don't need to ask them. Like, I already know how they're doing. It's really easy to just kind of make those subconscious assumptions and kind of fall short of really being like, how are you doing today? How was your work day?
Yeah, being in such confined quarters, asking that question may cue them that they may not have even been aware of how they were feeling. So just keep that dialogue open and be accountable to your partner and their emotions.
It's important to communicate on a larger scale too. This lifestyle is a little bit hectic and a little bit crazy, and there's some big changes that have happened in our lives since doing it. And, for us, it's kind of one of those things that we don't know how long we really want to do this for. So we've had to have, kind of multiple check-ins since starting this lifestyle of, are you still enjoying this? Are you still happy? I know after last summer, we were both getting burned out, but Adam was especially so getting burnt out with the fast pace in which we were traveling. And, it took us to finally sit down and be like, what do we want? How long do we see us doing this? It's not even necessarily that we made some big decisions within those conversations, but I think it was just healing and good that we were able to talk it out, realize that we were pretty much on the same page, that neither of us were really wanting to move as fast as we were, that, we were both feeling burnt out, and that, let's slow down a little bit and maybe move at a slower pace. Point being, those larger scale check-ins are super important because not everybody wants this lifestyle. This lifestyle is most certainly not for everybody. And at the very least, it's not for everybody all the time. Just because you chose this one at one point in your life does not mean that, we've been doing this 3 years now. Basically, point we're trying to make is that you might change your mind a couple of years down the road, and if somebody's feeling differently than the other person, you don't necessarily want to fault them for that, but just try to come up with how can we figure this out together and make sure that everybody's comfortable expressing where they're at.
Yeah, just being a team and really teasing out where we both are at and being transparent about that. I know we've both kind of had our ups and downs, and, in order to have the ups, you need to make sure that the downs are dealt with accordingly.
There's been a couple conversations we've had where we thought we were on a separate page, and then we realized with just a little bit of tweaking to how we were doing this lifestyle to get the most out of it, that was actually what needed to change. That it wasn't necessarily an all or nothing, that we just, when Adam had burnout, it wasn't I just want to stop doing this completely. It was just more how can we do this in a way, because we still enjoy it and there's a lot of positives to it, but how do we, kind of eliminate some of those more drastic negatives that are really kind of making it feel overwhelming at times. And, we're constantly in a state of reevaluating that and just making sure that we're both getting what we want out of life.
All right, so next up on the list is that proverbial me time. When are you going to have time to deal with your own needs and just have that intentional time apart from your partner so that you're not tearing each other's hair out 24/7? You know, it's really easy when you're stationary to, like I said, go grab a beer with a friend and just, you know, get that time apart. But
Get out of the house.
You really have to be more intentional about that in this lifestyle, and it can really pay dividends down the road for the health of your relationship when you guys are having those individual desires and goals and, you know, just time to relax without having to hold a conversation. You know, you don't really have anybody else that you can depend on other than your partner. So staying in touch with your individual people that you've come close with over the years can be super paramount to your own mental well-being outside of your relationship with your partner. So utilize the technology at your disposal to keep in touch with your family, your friends. You can do virtual hangouts and, you know, just, you can grab that proverbial beer with your friend. You just might be 2,000 miles apart in the meantime.
I think the point is, just because you can't physically hang out with someone, don't let your other relationships go by the wayside. Still prioritize those. It might not be, you know, as good as hanging out in person, but it's better than not talking to them at all.
And you've come close with these people for a reason, and, you know, without nourishment, relationships do fade away. So I would hate to see that in your relationships.
Okay, Mr. Robert.
Mr. Robert?
Mr. Rogers. Oh god.
This is a new show called Mr. Robert's Corner.
Mr. Robert.
I don't know who Mr. Robert is.
It's you. Going back to what the beginning of this was, it was about me time. And so that being said, you know, it's important to have hobbies and things that you look forward to as an individual that aren't just necessarily things together. I know Adam and I I would say, as far as like most relationships go on the spectrum, we don't necessarily require that much alone time from each other. But I think it's still important, and it's something that we still make a priority of from time to time. So it sounds silly, but even things like Adam enjoys hacky-sacking and I love cooking, and those are things that we kind of do individually. And don't get me wrong, like Adam's, you know, will help me sometimes in the kitchen, and it can be like a bonding thing, or I've gone out and hacky-sacked with him and stuff like that. And, you know, we have other hobbies too, but point being, just having something that you enjoy doing as an individual person that you don't necessarily need somebody there with you to do, I think those things are super important to keep as an aspect of your life and your relationship, even when you're on the road, even, you know. And I think this is like really just advice, not even necessarily for people on the road, but like ever since COVID, so many couples spending an excessive amount of time together in, you know, usually their home for the most part, not really going out as much. This sort of thing has become even more important for, I think, just even if your relationship can sustain well without having too much time apart, I think as an individual, it's important to have time to yourself to kind of revisit, you know, who am I without this other person attached to me? What do I enjoy doing?
Yeah, and even more practically, in the scenario where she's cooking dinner, you know, maybe I'm doing the dishes right next to her from lunch, and just really having that decompression time from the day where maybe I'm listening to a podcast, or, you know, just having our individual tasks to be able to clear our head and, you know, have defined roles again, but also having that time where we're doing our own individual things. Even doing separate chores individually can be rewarding at times. You know, I change the oil by myself, or, you know, Krista can do the dishes, or, you know, while she's cooking, I do the dishes. Just really being able to have that.
I patched our roof by myself.
Yeah, you did, without my permission. And don't go up on the roof by yourself. Pro tip.
Okay.
But luckily she got away with that one scot-free, so we'll just pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's just about having balance of alone time and together time, and you should still prioritize that even if you're living in close quarters together. Speaking of balance, spending a good time in versus a good time out as a couple is super important. When you're on the road, it's really easy to fall into the trap of constantly feeling the need to go outside, do this, have new experiences. And while those are great things to do, you know, for us, it's like kind of, I guess, the opposite. Most couples like have that struggle where it's like, we need to go out on a date and we need to do this. I feel like we're constantly doing stuff like that. And it's kind of had this reversal where for us, dates are like our nights in. It's like, oh, let's just like stay in and cuddle and watch a movie. And that's like a more rewarding, like random thing that we can do as a couple.
On the flip side of that, there are certain days where we don't even go outside until after it gets dark. So really taking that intentional time together to go on a walk with the dogs, or, taking that intentional time to cuddle in bed and watch a movie, whatever it is, just try to make sure that there's an even balance on both ends and not skewing in one direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's not so much even an issue of if we're spending too much time together, it's just the way that we're spending that time together. So, yeah.
The final piece of advice that we'd like to instill in you is just to embrace this life. Don't lose sight of the reasons why you set out on this voyage in the first place. Really just take the time to embrace each individual aspect of what your life has to offer. If you're in a warmer climate during the winter and your RV park has a swimming pool, or better yet, a beach, take 30 minutes out of your lunch to go swimming. But you work with the person that you love or, like a whole lot. Why not, in between work tasks, go ahead and show them some appreciation and go give them a kiss, or show your dog some appreciation and play with them in the middle of the day. Basically, just, think about all the things that you would miss if you went back to a regular office job and all of these things were not an option anymore and you were just forced to work with coworkers who you like but don't love.
Well, at the end of the day, I think what we're getting at is try to remember how you saw this life before you were doing it, and just try to figure out if there's little things you can do to get it a little bit closer to what you envisioned. And, overall, if you're happier as an individual, you're going to be happier as a couple. And yeah, don't take for granted that you literally get to share this life with somebody. I mean, this life is so awesome, and we worked really hard to be able to do what we're doing right now. And that being said, it's even more rewarding that I have somebody that I get to share it with every day. So, don't take those little things for granted, because if they weren't here, you'd really miss it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, guys, just appreciate the one that you have to love and appreciate the life that you guys have set out on together, and just embrace every aspect of both of those. And at the end of the day, you can't go wrong if you're with the one that you love. But as always, guys, we appreciate you coming to our channel, watching this video. We hope that you have a lovely Valentine's Day. Drop a like or a heart or a comment or something to tell us that you love us, because we're lonely and on the road.
What? Yeah, give us some love. We're really
Give us some love. Give us all the love. But we'll see you guys next week. And as always,
thanks for traveling with us.